let's see how much Millie Bobby Brown really earned throughout her entire career. Millie's story starts back in 2013 when she was just 9 years old, landing a guest spot on the ABC fantasy series Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. She played young Alice in 2 episodes, and here's the reality check. She made roughly $5,000 total. That's right, $5,000. This was pure SAG-AFTRA guest scale for a child performer, nothing glamorous, just union minimum. But here's something most people don't know. Millie's family had actually moved from England to Orlando, Florida, just to chase her acting dreams, and they were struggling financially. Every small paycheck mattered. The following year, in 2014, things started looking up when she became a series regular on the BBC America thriller Intruders. On playing Madison O'Donnell across 8 episodes, her estimated earnings between $80,000 and $120,000 for the entire season. Still modest by industry standards, but this was her first main role. Intruders was actually a pretty dark show for a child actor, dealing with body possession and psychological horror, but it gave Millie serious dramatic training that would pay off massively later. That same year, she also appeared in a guest spot on NCIS as Rachel Barnes, pulling in an estimated $3,000 to $5,000. Standard CBS union rates, nothing more. Then in 2015, she hit the comedy circuit with a guest appearance on Modern Family playing a character named Lizzie, earning roughly $4,000 to $6,000. Followed immediately by another guest role on Grey's Anatomy as Ruby for about the same amount. These were barely keeping the lights on, but Millie was building her resume one small part at a time. And then everything changed. In 2016, stranger things happened. For season 1's 8 episodes, Millie earned $30,000 per episode, totaling $240,000. Now, that might sound like a lot compared to her previous work, but remember, Netflix had no idea this show would become a cultural phenomenon. Millie was still a relatively unknown child actor. Here's a crazy behind-the-scenes fact. Millie actually auditioned for Stranger Things while she had a bad cold, and the Duffer Brothers later said her slightly raspy voice actually helped her land the role of Eleven. That cold was worth millions. Season 2 arrived in 2017, and Millie's rate stayed the same, $30,000 per episode for 9 episodes, bringing in $270,000. Netflix hadn't renegotiated yet because these deals were locked in before season 1 became a massive hit. The show's success was building, but the kids' contracts hadn't caught up to the reality of their stardom. In 2018, she did something completely different, narrating a VR experience called Spheres, Songs of Spacetime. The estimated paycheck was between $50,000 and $100,000. Not huge money, but an interesting artistic departure that showed she was willing to experiment with new media formats. Then came her massive film debut. Godzilla, King of the Monsters in 2019 paid Millie $1 million plus back-end participation. Yes, you heard that right. Ordered her first major studio blockbuster, and she cracked 7 figures with profit participation. The blast actually obtained her contract, confirming these details. This was the moment Hollywood realized Millie Bobby Brown was bankable beyond Netflix, but Netflix wasn't about to lose their golden goose. In 2020, Enola Holmes premiered with Millie not just starring, but also serving as a producer. Her base salary, $6.1 million, plus an estimated $800,000 in performance bonuses. At 16 years old, she was making more per project than most actors make in their entire careers. The film became one of Netflix's biggest hits, and Millie's negotiating power went through the roof. If you're enjoying these insane salary reveals, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're breaking down Hollywood's biggest paychecks every single week. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Later in 2021, she returned to the monster universe with Godzilla vs. Kong, this time commanding $3 million plus back end. Her rate had tripled from the first Godzilla film, and she wasn't even the lead. That's the power of Stranger Things fame combined with Enola Holmes' success. By the time season 4 of Stranger Things rolled around in 2022, Millie's per episode rate had exploded to $300,000. For 9 episodes, that's $2.7 million. But here's where it gets complicated. Millie had signed an overall deal with Netflix that bundled her TV and film work, which actually meant her Stranger Things rate was strategically lower than it could have been because she was making so much more on the film side. And speaking of films, Enola Holmes 2 in 2022 shattered records. Variety confirmed that Millie earned $10 million for this sequel. At 18 years old, she became the highest paid actor under 20 in Hollywood history. Let that sink in, $10 million. With her producer credit factored in, this was a full-blown superstar deal. deal. The contract leaked, and Millie even publicly addressed it, showing remarkable maturity about her earnings. Fast forward to 2024, and Damsel hit Netflix with Millie as the executive producer and solo lead. Another $10 million payday. The contract leaked again, which seems to happen a lot with her deals, probably because the numbers are so extraordinary that people can't help but talk about them. Damsel was a medieval fantasy where she fights a dragon, and while reviews were mixed, Netflix clearly believed in her drawing power enough to cut that massive check. In 2025, the Electric State released a big-budget $320 million sci-fi film from Netflix. Millie's salary, $5 million. Now, you might think that's a step down from $10 million, but remember that overall Netflix bundle deal. She was still making premium money, just distributed differently across multiple projects. The film paired her with Chris Pratt, and her rate reflected the ensemble nature of the production. And finally, we have Stranger Things Season 5, the final season currently in production for 2025. Millie's making approximately $300,000 per episode, though the exact figures are obscured by that Netflix bundle deal. With roughly 8 episodes, that's around $2.4 million. Some reports suggest her co-stars might actually be making more per episode at this point, but when you factor in her film deals all under the same Netflix umbrella, Millie's total compensation package absolutely dwarfs everyone else's. So let's do the math. Across her entire documented career, Millie Bobby Brown has earned approximately $43 to $45 million in base compensation alone. That breaks down to roughly $8 million from all 5 seasons of Stranger Things, $4 million from the Godzilla films, and a staggering $31 million from her Netflix features like Enola Holmes, Damsel, and the Electric State. When you add in the back-end participation from Godzilla, performance bonuses from Enola, and her producer fees, the real number is likely several.